Hi everyone, welcome back. So here we have our keypad and it's been shelled. Oops, let's see if we can get this to activate. There we go. It's been shelled. It's got drafts in, it's got fillets in, all the rest, and then you filled in the custom properties. If these don't show up, just hit the F5 button. That should replenish it. So just to take note here, the material must be silicon. I want you to make it silicon. To do that, go to Edit Material, under SolidWorks Materials, that one there. Right near the bottom is silicon. Say Apply, Close, and then make sure it's Injection Molding, Revision 1, and you can give it a color if you want, and then just click Apply. Alright, so let's save that, Control S, and see what we can do about the drawing. So if you go to New and you say Make Drawing from Part, I'm going to say no. So in this case, I'm deliberately choosing an A3 size to show you how to fit everything in. And because it's first angle, remember front view always goes in the front, right? And then below it goes the top view, and to the right goes the left view. So that is the standard configuration. And this should always line up exactly with that view and that one exactly. You can't put these views wherever you wish. They must go in this arrangement, this L shape. That's what this symbol means. All right, so I'd like to see this much larger, so I'm going to change the scale of the entire drawing. So if you go to the bottom in your status bar, you'll see this little 1:1. If you click on that, you can select 2:1 and then scale it up. Okay, so then you can drag these views around. Okay, the next thing I want to do is get rid of the center mark, mainly because center marks are not very amenable to certain kinds of dimensions, so I'm going to delete it. And in its place, I'm going to put under annotations 2 center lines. So I'm going to select vertical and vertical, horizontal and horizontal, and say OK. And then the beauty of these is that you can stretch them to wherever you want them to be. Please make sure yours go outside quite far, like I'm doing. Okay, and then these are special center lines. These are what are called axes of symmetry. Pretty much means that whatever they go across has been divided almost equally. Well, in this case, there's 3 on one side and 2 on the other, but the basic shape is symmetrical. And you'll see later on when I put in the pitch that this would make sense as well. Okay, we need to mark them as axes of symmetry, so we're going to use either the right click and say, it's not in here, you can either get it there, so a note, or at the top, note. And under note, the third button in the text format column is add symbol. It has CL right in the very first slot, that's how important it is. Okay, so the temptation now is to put CL where you want it to be at the end of the line. I would resist that instead. Get the view to activate and put it inside the view. If it tends to want to put a leader in, just come across to the left-hand side under leaders and say no leader. And then if you place it within the bounds of this bounding box, that's what this purple line is, it's going to stay aligned to this view. So we need 4 of them. We need 1 for this view. Click on the empty space. The next one, I'm going to get it to align with that view. Click in empty space, and then back to this view. Click in empty space. Click in empty space. So if I can now move these around, which is what you must do. They must come at the end of the lines. And what this will do is now if I move these views around, those texts will stay aligned with the views. The only one that's going to be a problem is this one. If I move this up, you can see that that disappears out of the way. So you're going to have to watch that a little bit just to make sure that that's in the right place. But this one I can move left to right or top to bottom, and there won't be a problem. All right, then the next step, Oh yeah, sorry, there's something I've forgotten here. If your scale doesn't show 2 to 1 here, even though the drawing view is 2 to 1, you're going to have to edit that. So right click and say edit sheet format, and then just double click in here, select that 1 and replace it with a 2, exit, and we're done. Okay, now I would like a section view, but before we do section views, I want to show you something about them. You must always make your section views cut across the features that you want to cut across in a perpendicular fashion. So let me just show you. I'm going to save, no, we won't save the drawing yet. Let's just show you in this view. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is exactly the same as what we do in the drawing. It's just easier to show it to you in 3D. So I'm going to put a sketch on that plane. And ideally, I'd want my section view to go from that center point through this center point onwards, because such a line would bisect this circle in a perpendicular fashion. So if I were to put in another line over here, you'd see that these two are perpendicular. Okay, and I mean, if I drag this across, and get that to line up with this, make pierce. I'm not sure if it'll do it. Anyways, I think you get the picture. Let's illustrate. So that line's also cutting through this button perfectly perpendicularly. Let's try and illustrate by putting a line in which doesn't cut perpendicular. So from here, we're going to slice off something like that. So you can see that that line is creating an angle with, I don't know if I can get this right, it's creating an angle with that line there. So that line there is now tangent to this line. There, it's not showing it, but it is actually tangent. And if I were to measure that, that's not, see, that's only 33 degrees. Okay, but let's just see if we can get this to do a 3D thing for us, just to show you what's happening. So I'm going to use that line, not that face. I want that line and that face. Okay, then I'm going to use that line there to slice this off. And you can see that when you slice off like that, these bits where it slices off not perpendicular, that is about twice the thickness of what's happening at the bottom. So that's not going to give you an accurate view. I can't measure this in this view, but I could in the drawing, and it's going to give you the wrong message, the wrong reading. Okay, let's go back to the drawing and have a look at how that works. So just update that. So we're going to go to view layout. Yours doesn't say view layout anymore, it says something else. Section view, and it'll be not the horizontal, I mean not the vertical, it'll be the horizontal, and so you must make sure that it snaps to the center line like that. Okay, so there's my section view. I'm going to drag this out. Now, whenever you do a section view for me, it must always be at twice the scale of the view it is derived from. So this is scale 2 to 1. I want to make it 4 to 1. Drag this down, say use custom sheet size, drag up to the top, user defined, and then just change 2 to 4. So that's banged that up, okay. And now I'm just going to move this text out of the way, and also I want to scale the text down. So just double click in there, and then select a smaller scale. There we go, so that it's not as bad as what I've got there. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to use this view. Whenever you do a section view, it should be the view which holds the most dimensions, because it gives you the best opportunity for doing so. I'll show you why in a minute. But before I do anything, this view, I know when I move it around, it's going to be too big for this space. So let me show that to you. I'm going to right click in here and say alignment, break alignment. Say OK. So that means I can drag this around, but look, I can't, it's not easy to fit it in anywhere. Okay, so let's just drag it to the top first. Before I do anything to make the view smaller, I want to put a center line in, because I'm going to need that to dimension. So center line from that line to this line should give you that bit, which you can drag out. All right, and then to make this view smaller, I'm going to use, under view layout, I'm going to use break view. If I use break view with the shape and I break from there to there, it's going to break whatever dimension I have that goes across this line. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to put this one dimension in first. It'll be this diameter. So from there to that point, I'm choosing points here deliberately, and there you see it puts in diameter 28.67. The moment I break that, if I go from, let's go from there to there, that disappears and I can no longer get it back. So please make sure that you do this first, put the diameter in first, then use break view, and then here just make sure that you're going obviously in the right direction, and then you can change the gap size. So let's make it about 7 millimeters, and that'll allow you to say, let's break from there, and here I'm definitely not going to break inside the dimension, but to that point, because I don't need that that button, but I do want this button here. So I'm going to break at the end again, just like that. There we go. And so now I have a view that I can fit in much more easily into my drawing. So let's pull it to the bottom. It's probably going to be the nicest place for it. And then I can move this one up a little bit, and I can move this up. And so these are the things that I'm looking for, that you arrange these items so that whatever I'm looking at is easy to see, and that please make sure that none of these lines, no dimensions, go beyond the border. That border there, don't extend anything beyond it ever, because that is the border. That's the place you're not allowed to go beyond. All right, so the next step is I might want to just move the section line out a bit, so you can select the section line and then right click on it and say edit cutting line. This will give you a dialog box on the left. You have to say edit sketch, and now you've got to be careful, because if you just use the command as it is, it's going to add a line in. So hit the escape button and then just drag these out as far as you want them to be, something like that, and then say OK. And then exit, you have to exit the sketch, and when you do that, it's just moved those two arrows out a little bit. Okay, so the next step is, I'm not going to dimension this yet. The next step is to put in the pitch on this item. So I'm going to avoid dimensioning this view and this view altogether, because I have those two views captured in the section view. So let's do this view first, and then that view, and then that should be the end of the drawing. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create what's called a pitch diameter, which is a circle which goes through the center of this button to indicate that they're on some sort of circle. The problem with this is that we've originated it from a drawing, from a part. Let's just go to that part, which has no details other than the draft, the fillet, and the shell. That's stock there. That is like none of the details have been brought across from the original item. So we're going to have to do a little bit of sort of playing here. And the way we do this is we do this, not this, is use the point command. So point, and what I would like is to capture where the center of that piece is. So actually, do I need that bit? I can't remember. Yeah, that'll be useful, and then this center bit will be useful, and then just on this one, just get this next one to activate by just going to, there we go. So that's the center of that circle, that's the center of that circle, or that radius, and then that's the edge. So those three are all going to be useful in different ways. So let me show you the first one, this one here. Let's go and make a pitch circle. So I'm going to activate the circle command, go from the center, and I'm going to get it to snap to that point. So since I know that that point lies on the center of that arc, I know that this is the proper pitch circle. So if you were to imagine filling the rest of these little buttons in, they would go on that circle. I'd like that to be indicated as a pitch circle, so I'm going to change it to a construction line. There we go. And then I'm going to use these two. You can see that that line doesn't go through those 2 points, but I want those two to indicate how wide this button is. So that's going to be 4.81. And then I don't think I'm going to be able to grab this line. I am actually. So you could do that. That would be fine. So that's not quite right. It should actually be 2, but we're going to leave it for this drawing. We're not going to worry. 2.03. So let's just indicate what the pitch is here. By the way, if your line goes across like this, that's called, I forget what it's called, but there's a problem with the settings. So just go across to settings, go to document properties, make sure it says ISO modified, come down to dimensions, to diameter, and then right at the bottom here it says display with solid leader. Make sure that that's unticked, and then go back to the top and say save to external file. Just overwrite your standards. Okay, the way to get rid of it inside the drawing is select the dimension, go to leaders, and just say this one here, 1 arrow. Okay, so that's indicating a pitch circle. I just need to, actually we can leave it, because what I need to do is to indicate what sort of angular change happens between this one and that one. So I need to perhaps do the point trick again, because I've got no underlying geometry. So I need to make sure that that point snaps to the center of that line. And then I can use a center line again from the very center there. It seems, oh, it's dimensioning. Center line from there to there. Okay, and then if you dimension this angle, pull this out, you should get, I don't know why it's doing that. There we go, there's that little one. So just type in capital letters, please. It should default to that, but if it doesn't, just make sure they're in capitals. So what you're telling me, if I got this drawing, was that given a pitch of 32, of almost 33 degrees, and a diameter of 46, center these buttons equally on that. So each one will be 30, almost 33 degrees from the next. So if I were to go down, that would be 33 degrees, 33, 33, all the way around. And then that they're 4.8 from their centers with a radius of 2.3. Okay, the other way you could do this is you could give a width. So you could go and find, I think it's that point to that point, and then dimension to the points. Just doesn't seem to want to choose. Okay, so if you have a problem, you can always go to the filters and say only select. That's not a, that's this one here. Only select the points, so from there to there. So that would be another way of dimensioning this, but we only want one, so I'm going to suggest this width one is better, and we don't need that one. Let's just take the filter off, get rid of that one. Alright, so this is pretty much almost done. The only thing we need to do now is to dimension the overall width. So let's go from there to there, and we can put that above. And let's put this one to the left-hand side, so it's out of the way of this one here. Okay, that can also go above. Please make sure your dimensions never ever are inside. So if it's like that, it's wrong. So always come outside the view that it's in. Okay, and I'm going to save this now just to get rid of this funny thing, and we're going to say that looks right. I'm going to overwrite it. Okay, so if this goes all funny, then just hit the rebuild button. Okay, and then what we can do from here is just dimension a few other things. So number one is actually the first one you would put in the notes. You would give the wall thickness in the notes, but we haven't got that far. Let's just put 1, and then we'll say beneath this, let's say wall thickness. All right, and then this here will be radius 0.25, and this one as well we're going to use as an indicator that this applies to all edges, because we only need one dimension. They're all the same, so please don't put another radius in here. If I see this, I'm going to take marks off because you're duplicating. Please don't do that. Okay, and then here's a point perhaps. We don't really even need this. We don't need that one at all. We can delete it, and we can delete those 2 points as well. Delete them because we have the perfect opportunity here. We know that the section view goes through this perpendicular in a perpendicular fashion. So you can dimension, and here you have to be careful to dimension from point to point. Point to point. There we go. Because if you don't, if you select the line, it's going to give you a skewed dimension, or it's going to give you an angle. So you can see that's skewed. And I'm going to notice straight away. So please don't do that. And then we can dimension the height, 3.4. And the last thing, we've got the diameter in there. Let's just pull that to the bottom because that's where it should be. And pull this up a bit so that everything reads nicely. Pull that perhaps to one side. And if you got it looking something like this, then I'd be pretty pleased. Format and just say in notes, draft equals 1, and then to make sure that you get the degree symbol, come across to the left hand side, add symbol, and select like that, and then exit. Okay, and then the last thing I want you to do, obviously you must save your drawing. The last thing I want you to do is to save it as a PDF. So to do that, there's one thing you need to take note of. We're going to do it file, save as. Do not do print. Don't do print. It's not going to work. File, save as. And when you get to the dialog box at the very bottom here, save as type, select PDF. And then make sure that you select options first. And before it does anything, be sure to get this to go to its maximum, 600. High quality lines. 600, that one can be 300, it's fine. These you can leave as they are. And I'll show you why that is in a moment. So I'm going to... Okay, addendum to the end of my last video. So for those who watched it before I added this, I couldn't get the PDF part right. It's very simple. If you recall the way I created this drawing, I started with this view here, and then all of the rest of them are derived from that primary view. If you have a look on the left-hand side under the properties, under display style, you'll see it says draft quality and high quality. That's the only thing you need to worry about, whether it's high quality or draft quality. But the moment I click on high quality, that will disappear. There'll be no more option available to you. So these are all now linked to that primary one. You can see it says link to parent, and it says use parent style. Don't change this, by the way. I mean, I'll just show you what that'll do. You can make it colored or without a border. We don't want that. That's going to give you a picture instead of lines, and I want lines. Okay, so don't mess with any of this. These are all the same. They're all derived from that primary view, and that is now high quality. So when you say file, save as, which is what you must do, and you select the type as being PDF, the options here don't matter. I said 600, doesn't matter. You can make it 96. I think that one might matter, but just leave this as it is, 96 and 300. Say OK. And if I save over this item, okay, there it's done it. Okay, now watch, you'll see my, all right, so this is the PDF, which is complete. These are actual lines. There are no pictures in here. There are no JPEGs whatsoever. So what I can do just to prove that to myself that that's okay is if we open Inkscape and import it, you'll be able to see that PDF. So, okay, I've already been here, so I know that that's right. I say okay. All right, it's brought it in on the other page, but that doesn't matter. What you can see here is if I grab one of these, like if I grab that and try and move it, you can see that it's a vector. There are no JPEGs. Control Z, which is what we want. Thanks for watching. Cheers.